This drill, when you hit balls doing this initially, it felt so good you didn't want to go back to the regular position.
I was hitting it so straight this way, I wanted to go out on the golf course and play like that. But there we go, I've got the left foot in front of the right. Make sure my shoulders are square. That's a better
great.
one.
I mean, what it really does too, it gets your left side in a resisting position. It doesn't allow your hips to open as quickly, because a lot of players think, right, clear those hips, clear the hips, and it just gets the body so far behind, the upper body that is,
right,
that in actual fact your upper body is too square. So you get a better relationship between your upper body and your lower body coming into impact. So it really gets you the feeling of, right, let my right side really go. It's just like getting a ball once again and throwing it, or hitting a forehand in tennis. So a lot of other sports you can relate to golf.
One of the questions I'm frequently asked, Dave, is how much has the swing changed over the years?
Well, it has changed to some extent, mainly because of equipment. And I think the thing you're seeing these days is that the players are using the bigger muscles more in the swing than they did in the old days. In other words, much less hand action. Hand action really, I think, is a result of, say, using hickory shafts and the fact they had to square the club face off physically. And certainly, little shots around the greens, the hands are still used. But I think these days, for the most part, players are using less hands, more bigger muscles. And I think what I see with some players, the fact is when they use their hands too much, it's as a result of them being out of position in some other part of the golf swing. So they have to make up through impact with the hands. Remember, the less hands you use, the squarer the club face is going to be, the more consistent your shot pattern is going to be. So players who hit the ball at an inconsistent height or trajectory, who draw it or fade it without much control, normally you're going to find that the club face is closing very quickly through the ball. Right.
It's flipping over a little too fast there.
Exactly.
Like that, huh?
Very, very handsy. The club face is almost open to close in a very short space of time. And the good ball strikers such as yourself keep the club face on line an extremely long time through the ball. The club face is square to the target line and really working in conjunction with the body. So the body is in control of the club. It's more what I call a body release rather than a hands release. So if we can get the hands out of the swing, we're going to have a much better chance of being more consistent and hitting a consistent pattern of shot. Now, you know, we've tried this little drill before, Nick. It takes a little practice, but it's what we call a split hand drill, where you separate your hands on the shaft, probably about an inch or so. And what this does is to illustrate where your hand should be coming into impact. If you use a lot of hands, why don't you just illustrate this, and the club face is closing, just work it through to the finish. Right, and again, let's really flip it now, because we normally see through impact the hands are really, right, that's it. Almost the left wrist gets cupped through impact to some extent to the finish. And by the way, a lot of players who are handsy, a clue for this is a very high finish.
Right.
You normally find today, the modern swing, the club is much more around the body, much flatter finish than it used to be, sort of very much like Hogan.
Right.
So the key being with this drill, if you use your hands, especially your right hand to any extent, the club face is going to close rapidly, and you know you're going to hit this quick hook there, and so you've got to move your left leg out of the way quickly. So this way, if you swing through, if you make a practice swing, just swing it through to your finish and then bring the club down. If you bring it down, the club face really should be square at this point to your body. You can see there's no wrap over or closing of the club face. So it takes a little practice, but it'll give you the feeling. And a lot of players, when they do this to start with, sort of feel like, whoa, I'm going to leave the club to the right. But really, or leave the ball to the right, I should say. But really, the body is squaring the face off. It's like if you just put the club in your navel there, just stick the club in your navel. As you now swing back to a little swing, now turn through, you see the turn of your body squares the face. It's not something you have to consciously do.
Right.
Right. Now, this little exercise, say, it does take some practice, but it's an excellent way of feeling your hands being passive through the swing. It'll feel like your right hand is more underneath your left hand. Well, you hit that one pretty straight.
And I got the club face back square then.
Let's hit a normal shot here.
Yeah.
Don't need a tee, you're a big boy now. Right, now bring the club down, let's look at the face position. And that's why you hit the ball so straight, Nick. Lucky man. Let's summarize. Straighten your right arm for width on the downswing and to shallow the plane of the club. Use your lower body for balance. Open up your chest through impact so your right shoulder chases all the way through to the finish. Keep your hands passive through impact for solid ball striking. Nick, we've covered most of the technical aspects of the swing, all the pieces and the faults and the fixes associated with them. I think now we've got to look at the whole swing in general.
Right, and we must remember, David, that the whole golf swing only takes a second to a second and a half, and now we've got to put it all together.
Be careful of having too many pieces. So we're going to cover three basic aspects, and one is keeping your angles during the swing, a little bit of geometry, talk in terms of rhythm and flow, and then talk in terms of balance and synchronization and some of the faults that good players have in those areas.
As far as the overall swing is concerned, what do you believe is the single most important factor for consistency?
I think, Nick, you know, having taught so many players and of different builds, I think the most important aspect is making sure that you keep your angles during the swing. If you can keep your angles constant, you've got a much more chance of being consistent through impact. Mm-hmm. And as a result, taller players, generally speaking, have more of a problem, because if you're a shorter player with a lower center of gravity, it enables you to sort of keep your angles more constant throughout the swing.
Right, you're talking about spine angles here.
Yeah, spine angle. Basically the angle of your back that you set for yourself at address, because what we want to try to do is maintain this, turn back, turn through and maintain that through to impact, and obviously after impact you can come out of it, but really trying to retain that position. The fault that I see with so many good players, generally speaking, is that you see them, they tend to maybe lose their angle a little bit going this way, but the big fault I see is coming into impact where they actually, their middle goes out towards the ball, they straighten up, their hands get very steep, and the shaft plane gets very steep through impact. So very important, I think, to learn to retain this angle. So it'll feel for a lot of players that when they come into the ball, that their chest is over the ball, they feel their rear end out, and maintaining the position. I mean, Lee Trevino was great through this position. So you really maintain it. And for good iron play in particular, it is so important. You can get away with it a little bit more with the woods, but for good players, for good iron play, you've got to maintain that spine angle through impact there and just beyond. So here's your spine angle right here. Okay, right now, rotate. Good. So your weight has certainly moved to your right side. Your shoulders have turned at 90 degrees, maybe a little steep. There we go. 90 degrees to your spine angle. That's good. Right, now from there, as we unwind, we maintain this angle. You can see the angle right here formed at his waist. Right, now through, boom, to the finish. And when he comes out, yes, he's going to be a little bit taller, but certainly to impact and just beyond to maintain that position. So that's a good exercise. I say it helps the feeling of the turn, but the big thing, it enables them, say, to maintain their angles from where they started to after they've made contact with the ball.
Great. Having watched a lot of videos of the great players in the days gone by, and also some of the guys today, Dave, I noticed that even though their tempos might differ a little bit, some guys are quick and some guys are slow, the overall rhythm of their swings looks great.
That's exactly right, and I think we've got to distinguish the difference between tempo and rhythm. Tempo is the overall speed of the swing. In other words, you have a fairly quick tempo, you move quickly. Other players obviously swing slower, they move slower, but the whole key is putting all the pieces together with good rhythm. And normally, the better your swing is, mechanically wise, the better chance you've got of having good rhythm. For instance, like Nick Faldo, for instance. Now, I think the key is where a lot of good players that I see go off, when they lose their rhythm, it happens in the start of the swing. They get very jerky to start with and snatch the club away and obviously have poor rhythm.
And sometimes guys are too slow.
Exactly. They're probably thinking so hard on their swing and all the parts and pieces that they take it away too slow, and as a result have poor rhythm as well. So the lubricant